Hey, and welcome to another episode of That Fabric Guy here on YouTube, where I will be teaching you every week on different topics in Microsoft Fabric. And today I want to be talking about task flows inside Microsoft Fabric, what they can be used for, how we can change them, how we can add them, how we can do stuff with them, and how we can make sense of our projects and make it a bit less messy. So let's dive into my laptop to find out what task flows are all about. Alright, so here we are looking at Microsoft Fabric on my laptop. Let's zoom in a little bit for you guys to actually be able to read what's on the screen. It's a large screen, so otherwise it will be a bit difficult. And now what you might see here, if you're used to working with Microsoft Fabric workspaces, is this gray bar here. Because usually a workspace will open just like this. It will open with an empty bar in the middle of the screen, taking up a lot of space, a lot of screen real estate, and there's nothing there. It is meant for task flows, but by default there is no task flows in a workspace. So what I used to do before I figured out what task flows are all about, I would simply click on this button right here to move it up and to basically delete it from my view in order for me to view my actual objects, my warehouses and notebooks and pipelines and so on. But now what we are going to do today is going to look at this part of the screen and how we can actually create task flows. So first of all, what are task flows? And task flows are a way to document your process and to make sure that it is a bit more clear what the objects in our workspace are actually doing. So what we can do first is add tasks to our task flows or create a pre-designed flow. Now let's look at the pre-designed flows first, because this will actually be helping us tell the story about what task flows are. So what we can see here on the screen right now is that we have a set of pre-designed task flows that you can immediately see are kind of flowcharts, where you can figure out that we can put certain pieces of the puzzle of our data platform in a certain task within a task flow. So what is a task? A task can be a thing like get data or store data or visualize data or talk to AI or anything like that. And what this helps you do is, if you have larger workspaces with a lot of objects, with lakehouses and warehouses and pipelines and notebooks and Power BI reports and so on, it will help you make sense of what's actually in your workspace. All right, so let's see what we can do here. Let's begin with creating a pre-designed task flow from scratch, and I'm looking here at our Kimura internal data warehouse here. So I'm not going to show you any data today. Unfortunately, that's not allowed. I'm not allowed to show that to the world, but I can show this this workspace. I just removed all the task flows. I can show this workspace and use it as a task flow demo today. The reason I'm picking this one and not one of my regular That Fabric Guy workspaces is that this is an actual data platform, an actual data warehouse that we run inside Microsoft Fabric, where in one workspace we have all three layers of the medallion. We have notebooks, we have pipelines, we have Power BI reports, semantic models, and so on. So this will be a really good example. Now let's start with one of the, I think, most fitting task flows is the medallion task flow here. So let's select that one, and now immediately you see that the screen is populated with the task flow right here. Now going through it, we can see that there is a few types of tasks that we can have here, and they are color coded, so we can easily find them. And then once we start adding objects or Fabric artifacts to them, those will be color coded as well, as to make our lives in finding stuff a bit easier. Now, what do we have here? Let me zoom in a little bit. We have get data tasks, we have store data, prepare data, this is where your notebooks would go, for example. Visualize data for Power BI, analyze and train data, and so on. So there's a few things that we can work with. Now let's start at the beginning. Let's click on the low volume data ingestion, and then here on the right side of the screen, what we find is the settings of this task. It's called low volume data ingest. We can remove it, we can edit it. For example, we can edit the name. Let's change this to just ingest, because I will not make a distinction between low and high volume. This is ingest data into the data lake, just like that. Save it, and then a task type to filter the list of items is recommended, to get data, mirror data, and so on and so on and so on. So What we could be adding to these tasks are objects that are either copy job, data flow, notebook, or Spark job definition, and we will be using notebooks because the ingestion for our Lakehouse or for our data lake is notebooks. All right, so let's remove that high volume there. Let's just remove it like that. It should be super easy. Let's look at bronze data storage, processing silver, transforming, and then gold. That looks all right. Then we visualize. We can put Power BI stuff in here, dashboards and reports. Sounds good. And then we have, let's see, ML serving. We can put stuff in there. We don't do machine learning right here, so let's just remove that. So I think for now we have quite a decent task flow here. Now looking at our artifacts here, we have a semantic model, we have a lakehouse, we have an environment to reports, and then we have a folder with pipelines, just 2 pipelines. And then we have a notebook folder with a maintenance notebook and then notebooks for configuration and notebooks for each of the stages in the medallion architecture. So let's start adding stuff to our ingest data right here. We can, by the way, we can click on new item here. So there's this small button. Let me zoom in again. There is this button here called new item where we can create new items that are recommended for this task in the task flow. And then we can actually create a new item that is immediately joined to this task. We can also use the attachment button, and here we can start adding attachments. So let's go into bronze and let's open these, and these, because these are the ingest notebooks that we will use. So just like that, we added 3 items to my task in the task flow. And now when I find the items right here in my object browser, I will see that the task connected to this item is the ingest task that is right here. Okay, so from here we cannot click. That's maybe a bummer, maybe it doesn't matter. But from the process here, I can click and it will filter down to all the objects, regardless of where the objects are stored in what folders and so on. It will show me all the objects that are in that task. So it will group them together. That makes it easier for me to find stuff. Do we have more ingestion stuff? Yes, we do. We have this is not just ingestion, it's processing as well. So maybe we should add a new task here that is more of a, let's see, more of a general task. Maybe put it like that. And then we can put in the orchestration. No, this is just an extraction. The orchestration thing here. That's general. That's all right. And then we should add the pipeline for daily cost extraction to our ingest step as well. And now here we can see that once we start clicking on a task, then regardless of the location of the objects, it will filter to those objects that we added to the task. We can find the location in here. So we have different folders and then we have different folders for pipelines here. So that is where general comes in. It's just an orchestrator pipeline. That should be all right. Then we have our bronze data store, and let's attach an item, and we will attach for bronze our lakehouse that's called internal data warehouse. The reason it's called internal data warehouse and not gold or whatever is that there is only one item for the medallion. So we store all 3 layers of the medallion in one lakehouse in this case. That's not something we do often, but for now we do. Now let's see what happens if we start adding multiple stuff to our if we start adding the same stuff to multiple tasks. That will not work. I just added it to bronze, then swapped to silver, and now these things are called silver. So what we have to do is the following. We have to remove our silver and gold storage objects. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to create this little flowchart where we have our bronze data. We're going to rename that to data storage, Lakehouse for storage. And now this is just the storage task that we have where we put all of our data in. Okay, the ingest step puts data in there, and then processing will also interact with our data storage. And it will interact in 2 directions. So the object will be So the notebooks, the processing notebooks will write data into the storage, but it can also read data from storage in order to do further processing. Okay, so from here we can drag into our transformation here and we can put stuff in there like that. And then from the data storage, we also will move into the visualization layer. Okay, it's a bit messy, but let's see if we can arrange these things in a bit nicer way. Maybe, I don't know how to arrange this. All right, at least we have the ingest steps in here. I don't really like how this is laid out. It doesn't make it really clear what's now going on. Anyway, let's attach the stuff to my data storage here. So we pick our Lakehouse like that. That's it. Then the initial process, let's call this the silver processing. Oops. Silver processing. Process, clean, transform the data to ensure data quality. That's about right. That's what silver is doing. And then for this one, we will call this gold processing. It's the final transformation, highly structured, reliable analysis of ready data and copy most refined data into the gold layer. This is exactly what my gold notebooks are doing. So that's actually fine. Good. Okay, now let's see. We have a lot of objects that are not in processing stuff at the moment. So let's start adding all the stuff from silver. And that is all of this. Let's put it there. Then for gold processing, we do the same. We go to pipeline, sorry, not pipelines. We go to notebooks, we go to gold, and we have to manually select or just multi-select everything in here. And these are the dimensions in the orchestration that we have for gold. So let's add it like that. And then we have another piece to the puzzle here. That's data visualize. And data visualize, what that is doing is the following. It is doing Power BI stuff. So let's start to enter Power BI and the semantic model like this in there. And here we have the visualization stuff. So now what we see is that there is a few different things that we are not using anymore. So internal data warehouse here, the semantic model that was joined to the Lakehouse, that is now obsolete. We're not using it anymore. You can see that this is a very old data object. Then the data warehouse is processed. Now what we are going to look at is the environment, and maybe pipelines are all done. Maybe the configuration and maintenance notebooks. These should be in the general task, I think. Or maybe in a maintenance task, but you get where I'm going with this. So put maintenance there, and then we will put configuration there as well. And we will put the environment there as well. And now we have created this labeling that is in our artifacts list. So we can now easily find by simply scanning the tasks here, the colors, basically the labels, that these are storage objects, these are visualization objects. And then for our pipelines, we find this is a general one, this is an ingestion one, and so on, and so on, and so on. So that makes your life a little bit easier if you're working with large scale environments where you have a lot of artifacts, a lot of objects in your workspaces. Now, the other way around, it works as well. So from here, let's find out if we can make this a little bit nicer, a little bit cleaner. We probably can't. Let's just remove these. You can select them and then hit delete. That will work like that. Just remove these arrows. Oh, did it the wrong way. Something like this. Something like that. And now our model looks a little bit cleaner. Let's move it here. And that's a good thing. You can just click and swap items there. So that's actually super nice. Let's see, this looks about right. And we have something like this, and then put this one here downstream, make it a left to right schema, so something like this. So this is an easier model to look at. So what we have learned today is how we can use task flows to not only visualize the process that our data is going through from left to right when we are working with data, and when we are actually creating data solutions using Microsoft Fabric. We are in a workspace. That workspace contains a lot of different objects, and those objects can be arranged into separate tasks that have to be executed in order to process data all the way from a source ingestion to an analysis step in Power BI or in machine learning models and so on. And what we also have done at the same time is not just visualizing that process, it is also actually tagging the objects so that we can easily find them. So by clicking on ingest, we will find all the objects that are happening with the ingest. And also if I'm just looking at this list right here, I will find easy all the tags, all the tasks that are there. I call them tags because it's basically tagging artifacts in order to find them. Alright, if you learned something today, please give me a like on this video. And if you learned something today and you trust me that I will be teaching you something next week as well, hit me with a follow. I'm almost at 200 follows at the time of recording this. And I would really love if you would bump me over this 200 followers number. It will mean a lot to me and it will mean a lot to you as well, because next week I'll be back with another video on Microsoft Fabric. See you next week.